be the is going to have the second part of our program, and he's going to get more specific on job search opportunities and assistance from our organization and others. So, but I'm gonna probably take a lion's share of the time here. And what I've done in the past, and so I will look for guidance if folks are feeling like, hey, listen, too much of this, but what we want to give folks a perspective on is the character of the Boulder economy and what are some of the opportunity areas in terms of industry sectors and where we have the greatest business activity. But then just talk about some of the challenges and things that we're facing, which might be relevant to those who are seeking job opportunities to get a sense of, gee, these are the issues we're grappling with that might be relevant when you're talking to Boulder businesses. So that's where I'm going to head with it, and so I'll go forward. But I'll look to Don and Trent to keep me honest if there are areas that you'd prefer me to focus on. So, but let me just get into the presentation here. Okay. And I'm assuming everybody, until I hear otherwise, can see the screen. Just going to go into presentation mode here.
Yeah, great.
You got it? Good. Perfect.
Yeah, looks fantastic.
I see somebody with their hand up there. Or Orlando, is that a indication you wanted to say something up front, or just hands up, just hold over from previous conversation? Okay, I'm just going to proceed then. So again, as I said, this is my end here as a background on Boulder's economy 101. So just sort of the surface understanding of our directions and our challenges. So just I thought it'd be fun to just walk through initially just the history of Boulder's economy, kind of instructive of how we got to where we are, and then the basic framework or landscape, as I characterize it, for our economy. So for those who don't know, Boulder really started back in the late 1850s, 60s as essentially a mining supply town. It was a company a town that supported mining up in the mountain communities. Folks would come down into the flatland for supplies, for food, for rest. And it had its real first activity was on Pearl Street. Nobody knows why Pearl Street was named Pearl Street. They think it might have been a daughter of one of the initial founders, but the Pearl Street you see today was the backbone of the initial business corridor for Boulder. And so for many years, it was serving that purpose, supplying the mining industry up in the mountains. But as the state then became officially recognized by the United States, they had a few things that they needed to accommodate. And the first was a prison, and the second was a university. And as I want to say, I'm very glad that the Boulder decided to go with the university over the prison, because fundamentally that is the foundation of Boulder's economy as it stands today. There was a famous midnight ride apparently down to Denver, meet with the General Assembly. The business leaders of Boulder had collected enough money to buy the land to then site the university where you see Old Main today on the campus. And that was the very foundation of, as I again say, the economy of Boulder. Just one fun fact, if you see the picture here of Old Main and you see it today, you'll notice that the staircase leading into the building is on this elevated plane, multiple steps going in. And I won't ask anybody to answer the question. I'll answer it for you. But why would you think that those stairs were like that? Well, because the surrounding area for the university was just a farm with cattle grazing, and they just needed to keep the cows out of the building. And so that was the method in those days, the sophisticated method to keep them free of the animals walking through the classroom. So the university in 1876 founded here in Boulder. We'll play later in terms of how that worked for us. But then just sort of toward the beginning of the 1900s, our business community started thinking, you know, we have this foundation in mining. That's been our tradition, but we need to diversify our economy. And the first measure toward diversifying the economy was to bring together funders, investors to build what is now still standing as the historic downtown Boulder Hotel, the Boulderado. And the idea was to build a high quality hotel that folks could come to visit Boulder and to take advantage of the surrounding beauty. They recognized, as we do today, that that's a huge asset to our community and an opportunity to draw visitors and their spending into our community. So Hotel Boulderado, founded in 1912, and that actually was the founding of our organization. Actually, 1915, sorry, 1915. No, 1912. No, God, man, probably could correct me here. We're 120 years old, so I'm doing the math. Whatever that was, 1905. That's what it was. 1905. Founding of the Hotel Boulderado, or building of the Hotel Boulderado. That was the founding of the Boulder Chamber, because it was the business alliance that came together to build the Hotel Boulderado. So that was the first diversification of our economy. We then started thinking about other means of bringing jobs into our community. And predecessor of mine, Franny Reich, came up with, in particular, 3 strategies for diversifying our economy. At that time, Boulder youth, they couldn't find jobs in Boulder. They had to leave the community in order to get jobs. So the goal was to diversify our economy, to bring more industry in. And he came up with 3 plans, and I'm outlining them here with 2 pictures. The first was they got wind, this is the 1950s, that the federal government wanted to move some of its administration, some of its departments outside of Washington, D.C. area, because this was the period when there was the threat of atomic attack, and they were still today, but then it was a very new threat. And so they recognized that they needed to take some of their critical laboratories and other institutions and spread them across the country. So hearing this, our Boulder citizens again funded a investment in the future economic welfare of our community, purchased the land that now is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So that was the first federal laboratory that would move out to Colorado, and it was an initiative of the Boulder Chamber and citizen investment, but an element of our key diversification of our economy going forward. Second, there was a recognition that we needed to make it easier for business and commerce to travel between Boulder and Denver, the major city that was evolving at that time. And so they invested then and got the resources to build the US 36 corridor or highway. It was a toll road for many years, going back and forth. That those bonds were paid off faster than they expected, and now, of course, it's a free highway travel. But that was a huge importance to commerce in our area. I'll note that the third investment was to draw in technology companies, and they built a building for what is a company's called EDS now, but it was one of the first mass computer supported fulfillment companies. They would get orders for magazines and be able to then mass distribute them across the country, and they drew that company to Boulder. So 3 important strategies: technology, bringing federal research labs, and then having this corridor of connection to the major center of commerce, Denver, between Boulder and Denver. So then we started to see the real fruits of our initial investment in the University of Colorado, and then also related to the federal labs and the research there. And the one that I highlight is Ball Aerospace. Now it's BAE Systems, but at the time, that was one of our first tech transfers, and it wasn't with computers, it was with yellow lined paper. They took the radar technology that had been developed at the University of Colorado, brought it out into the community, and developed new radar systems for the emerging aerospace industry and military purposes. And so that was the foundation of what became Ball Aerospace. It was called Ball Aerospace because the Ball Company, which is famous for producing glass jars and now cans, that family just came upon the need and recognition that they needed to diversify their business activities, and so they had invested in Ball into this radar company. So that was the first tech transfer coming out of the university. It's a significant evolution, and one that now is a common trend from the early days of building our economy. We then also started more in the 70s to see the industries evolve that related to the character and natural environment of Boulder. And so in the 70s, you started seeing these new outdoor industry leaders and innovators taking place. So you had Jerry, which became a national brand in producing backpacks and all sorts of other outdoor gear. That evolved into significant outdoor industry activity, which has been a mainstay for Boulder's economy for quite some time. And then finally, I just allude to another industry that was founded on the back of sort of the natural environment we have here. Mo Siegel, some of you may know, he initially was picking herbs up at Chautauqua and turning them into his own tea brands. That then led to ultimately the founding of the Celestial Seasonings, which was the foundation of another really important another important industry for our community, the natural products industry. So just gives you a sense of just the evolution of our economy over time here in Boulder. So just thinking just in terms of the character and strengths of the Boulder economy and how that, what is that then related appeal. And I just listed a few things here that I like to think of and I tout when I'm talking about why business in Boulder. Why would a business want to locate here? What are the attributes? And so first, we have that world-class research university. And I mentioned the Ball Aerospace tech transfer. Well, that now happens in aerospace. That happens in biotechnology. It spawns so many different industry sectors. A new one is quantum technology, which is an immensely important new foundation industry. We also have quite a diversity of industry clusters, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in a bit, but we have a broad cross-section of industries, which is a great element of our resilience, because one industry is going down, let's say it's biotech, another might be exploding, like software technology, that sort of thing. So it's a great balancing factor for us in our resilience as an economy. We have, if not because it goes back and forth, we have one of the highest educated populations in terms of citizens in this area and their advanced degrees, which is a great asset in terms of workforce that is available to our businesses, and I'm sure all of you fall into that category. We also have many of these research facilities, which also serve as a benefit, not only as an employer, but as an element of our technology transfer and the ability to take some of the innovations that are happening, whether it's in climate science or whether it's in different radar technologies or laser technologies, take that innovation and bring it out into the private sector to start new businesses. We're close to a major airport. That is a critical asset. It's coming up recently in the appeal. Some of you might have heard that we're trying to draw Sundance Film Festival to Boulder. Well, that's been a major element of it because they need folks to be able to fly in one day and immediately go to the film festival versus having layovers and multiple stops to get to that airport. But it's also hugely important for cargo and distribution of goods and access for staffing, et cetera. Undeniably, we have a beautiful natural landscape, which is an attractor for workforce. It creates a great environment for doing business, but also, as I mentioned, spawns its own economic activity in terms of natural products, in terms of the ethos of the outdoor industry. So huge asset. And then just a couple of more that I allude to, the diversity of our arts and cultural assets. Remarkable talent that we have here in the artistic sector, one of the highest concentrations, I think the third highest concentration in the country of artists living and working in this Boulder area. That is a big draw for people who then, as I will allude to here, the creative class industry folks who are of a nature that are scientists, who are innovators, who also recognize the value of arts and culture. It's a huge, important draw to our community. And I, again, mentioned this creative class, and I reference a book that was written by a sociologist, Richard Florida, who studies communities like ours. And in the early 2000s or late 1990s, he wrote a book called Rise of the Creative Class. And Boulder was what he said epitomized a creative class community that draws in talent and creative thinkers and innovators and artists all coming together in a downtown urbanized area to innovate in business, to come up with new ideas for products and technologies. That's the foundation of a really strong economy that is, for Boulder, we call it an innovation economy. It's one where it's not just that a big company comes in and it lands and does its business. It's not just that we have a big regional mall that comes in and is a source of our tax revenue. We have folks on the ground who are developing the new businesses for the future. And those are the ones that are ultimately the homegrown businesses that are available to hire and to support our economy. So what are those industry sectors? Again, I mentioned we have a unique number of them that are stabilizing our economy, and we're really rich in those areas. And in fact, in aerospace, we are number 2 in terms of the concentration of those aerospace industry businesses across the country. I think Houston or some place like that is number 1, but number 2 right here in Boulder. Pretty fascinating. The diversity, not only large companies like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and BAE Systems, but startups that are supporting those different aerospace, larger aerospace companies and or doing work with the federal government. Bioscience, incredibly strong. We had one of actually the largest investment in property in Colorado, $600 million invested in an office park in East Boulder that is foundationally supporting bioscience development, biotechnology companies. And so that's a great indication of the richness of our biotech industry and the potential for growth. So if you're thinking about job opportunities, those are areas where there is significant opportunity. We also are major players in clean tech, which is climate friendly energy sources and other technologies that are using less fossil fuels. Software IT, when you think about Google and you think about Amazon and other major IT companies, we house them here in Boulder. We used to have Twitter that collapsed with the transition of management, but they were big players here. And just a quick story about those IT companies. They're indicative of the innovation economy at work. So Google did not move here just on its own accord. They identified a startup business called SketchUp that was started here and started to build. It was a software technology for designing products and engineering structures. That company got purchased by Google. Google then folks came here and looked around and said, there's so much dynamism in this economy, so much innovation and technology. We need to be a part of this. They then set up camp here. Ultimately, the story of Google is it became the #1 job site for internal applications. So whenever a job opened up in Boulder, it was the #1 site that Google people from around the world would apply to jobs so that they could move to Boulder. It probably still has that reputation, but it just gives you a sense of sort of just how a startup business in Boulder can spawn a large investment by Google that now has about 2,000 employees here and also is a foundation of our economy. And I already mentioned natural products, a great strength of our community outdoor industry. Still very strong, particularly in innovative sports and apparel. And then we have our research economy, which is the laboratories and the researches at the university, which continues to break records, coming in at nearly $1 billion annually invested in university research. The last one that's not on the list is our visitor economy. Boulder, a great strength of Boulder, continues to be, dating back to the Boulderado, that strong industry sector for us. And they're continually working to, they talk about employment opportunities. A lot of the industry sectors that are hospitality areas is an area where there's constant turn and need to draw in talent. This gives you a sense of some of the key players in the different industry. I won't get into all the details, but just to give you a sense of we have a great deal of activity. Look at the number of companies involved in IT software, for example, 1,200, 2,200 financial institutions, biotech, obviously employing a significant number of folks, as well as our aerospace industry. So there is an enormous need for talent in those areas. And hopefully, as you're thinking about job search, you think about those areas and how your skills might apply to those opportunities. And it's not just engineers; it's folks who do administrative work, it's folks who do their financial work, et cetera. So just a couple of things just to think about in terms of challenges now for the Boulder economy. One is office vacancies. We are dealing with the consequence coming out of COVID of folks realizing, wow, I can have meetings for BoulderNet online. We used to meet in the basement of a church. Now we're all online together. That has fundamentally changed the character of commuting and working in Boulder. We used to have 70,000 people coming into Boulder on a daily basis. Now we're probably at 50,000. And that's led to significant cuts in the need for commercial office space. And you can see that in certain areas of our community, downtown Boulder being an example, we're down, the office vacancies are at 30%. And that's a crusher for many of our smaller retail and restaurant businesses, really suffering because they don't have the daytime traffic, they don't have the happy hours, they don't even have the group dinners and that sort of thing. So these are major concerns for us, and it's not just that there's vacancies, but also people are only coming into work twice a week or something like that. So we need to focus on that. That's a major challenge for us. I also note that that's then having an impact on tax revenue. There's probably other factors, but if you look at that red line in particular, you see that over the last 3-4 years, it's a relatively flat line. It's up, it's maybe up 2%, something like that, but that is down when you think about inflation, when you think about the cost of doing government services. That means that our government entities have less resources to invest in things like infrastructure, to invest in human service programs, et cetera. So we're seeing the impacts of this office vacancy and other factors playing out in our community. And then the other concern that I'll raise is this rise of is the second book written by Richard Florida, coincidentally, the person who talked about Boulder as the pantheon of the creative class. Well, he then wrote this book called The New Urban Crisis. And I always hit my forehead when I talk about it, because it's like he says, I so oversold this concept on investing and bringing people downtown, I forgot to think about the impacts that it would have on high housing costs. If you make it so attractive to be in a downtown area, that means that housing prices go up. That means it's really difficult for those creative class people, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the artists, to live and work in these spaces. And that drives innovation out to the periphery where it's less effective, where there's less of it. And again, thinking about that as a key foundation of our community. So we need to think about, how do we make sure that there's more housing, affordable housing? How do we address the commuting challenges for our workforce? How do we make sure that we're making the most of our talent? So that leads me to, and Don, I'm just checking, we're assuming that we go till 10:30?
Thereabouts, yeah.
Okay, so I'll do like this, and I'm going to leave room for my friend Matt too, but keep going. So just want to just hit you just on some research we shared with our board of directors. And it was relative to what are the key strategic focus areas for our organization to address the needs of our business community. And this came out of a significant survey that we did with our businesses. We had, at the time, we had 527 responses. We have had more since. There was a real diversity of folks who were surveyed. We also then had follow-up focus group sessions with groups of business leaders to talk about the results and make sure that we understood what they were trying to communicate to us. And we wanted to understand, like, what are the conditions that they're seeing out there, and where do they want us to go? So the first thing is just to get a sense of just the common vision that we have for our business and economy. And that's, folks want it to be an affordable and inclusive community. They want to draw in a diverse population. We need that. That's existential for us. If we don't have a diverse economically and ethnically, businesses won't want to be here. They don't want a monoculture community. They want to have diversity. That's part of our heart and soul, but it's also economically really critical. We want to keep strong small businesses. We want to make sure that that ecosystem of innovation, startup businesses, as well as the restaurants and retailers that are unique to Boulder, we want to make sure we're supporting that. We want Boulder to continue to be an innovation and entrepreneur hub. Again, I'm talking about the foundation of our economy, needing to keep that strong. There I'd say the reverse of concern about, but they want to have enhanced safety and cleanliness. We'll talk a little bit about those concerns in that area. And there's definitely deep interest in maintaining a sustainable environment for community. I think folks in our community recognize that climate change and use of resources are issues that are important for just quality of life and for sustaining our planet, but they also recognize that these can have major impacts on our economy and their business activity. So that's the vision. So what are the challenges? So I've already alluded to some of them and just seen the indications of the challenges in terms of sales tax, in terms of high housing costs or office vacancies, sorry. But where are those challenges that we're seeing that we need to focus on? So, we have this paradox, and that is that, we are just a strong place. I mean, it's sort of that, it's again, that the rise of the creative class. I mean, it is a great place for innovation and high education and quality of life. And folks generally are positive and optimistic. They see, a positive, generally positive direction. I have elections on my head, and I'd say 59% is a pretty strong testament to the health of our economy. 21%, pessimistic. Well, that's we would probably due to some of the concerns that we'll hit on. So the first and number one challenge is our housing crisis. We have a lack of affordable, and I'd say attainable housing, in particular in the middle income area. We need to have more middle income for sale housing that allows families to starter homes, that sort of thing, in our community. At this point, it's inaccessible to the average worker. I put myself in that category. I'm lucky to be here because I got settled 30 years ago, but that's now it's very difficult for folks who are in the working class of our community to be able to afford it. So we need to address that. Small business, rising costs, the cost of real estate, and the biggest part of rising real estate costs is property tax. We need to be able to help bring down that property tax height. It's way out of proportion to residential property tax. Right now, businesses pay 4 times what residential properties pay in property tax, and it continues to rise. That is putting a burden on our small businesses, as well as the regulatory burden. It's just incredibly difficult for somebody to put up a sign in Boulder. Well, that should not be such a cost and challenge, because every day they can't have a sign up on the wall. That means that they can't draw in customers. So we need to make sure that we reduce costs. We also have workforce challenges. And so this should be where your ears perk up. And that is that we need talent that matches the needs of our businesses. And they speak to the skilled and folks who blue collar. It's across the board that talent is difficult to access in Boulder because of of issues like housing costs, transportation issues. So there is opportunity through targeted understanding of needs of businesses to identify job opportunities. Transportation. I mentioned the housing. Well, if you can't live here, and you want to work here, you got to have a way to commute. And we need to make sure that we're continuing to improve the options for our workforce to commute in and out of Boulder. That's absolutely critical. Traffic is only getting worse, and it's getting worse. Interestingly, when we have fewer people coming in, it's because fewer people are using mass transit, because it's not fitting into their routine. They're not used to using it on a daily basis. That's become a challenge. For those who follow our newspapers, homelessness is a major concern for our businesses. It's become an issue for people who visit our community. The fact that we can't advertise the Boulder Creek Path as an asset for visitors because there's concern about safety on the creek path, that is a business issue. It's not just a quality of life issue. So we need to be able to help those who need it. And we also need to be able to address those who are recalcitrant and will not accept the services. So that's something that we're going to be very focused on. And then the last one is just the regulatory environment in general for, I mentioned it earlier, the high costs cause regulation. If we can't build and develop our commercial spaces and our housing to accommodate the needs of today and do it quickly and effectively and efficiently, that costs business money. That makes them decide, you know, in this climate, I'm not going to invest in Boulder. We cannot be known as a difficult place to do regulation, to do business. We need to be a place where it's efficient to do business. So that said, and this is the end of my remarks, the key focus areas for us are going to be going forward, housing affordability and workforce solutions, which Matt will be leading. Community health and safety, the issues of public safety and homelessness. Improving our transportation infrastructure, both the regional connections, but also you take a regional bus into Boulder, you better be able to get on some sort of mobility, whether it's a scooter or a shuttle bus that takes you right to your work, because it's not effective to get dropped off a mile away from your place of work in a regional bus. And then finally, just making sure that we're doing everything we can to revitalize our business districts, bring workers back to the office, and make sure that we're supporting our startup businesses. So with that, I say thank you. And I was just going to then just close down my side of it here. And maybe before we have questions, maybe Matt, do you want to take it from here in terms of talking about the sort resources and services that you're aware of for those who are searching for jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Trent, you were speaking whenever I hopped on. You were giving a lot of advice to folks. You were talking about have you connected to Workforce Boulder County, which we connect with them on a regular basis. They're a great source. They have lots of career fairs, online career fairs, all the way up to Wyoming. They do virtual career fairs for a lot of different people. With regard to the Boulder Chamber and our workforce initiatives, we partner with a lot of different people. One way that we do that is directly with industry. We basically participate. We convene regularly 5 different sector partnerships: manufacturing, food, beverage, hospitality, tech talent, which is really information technology and now growing in quantum enthusiasm, healthcare, and professional services, which is a lot of folks. That's marketing, finance, you name it. I'm going to put in the chat here a link to all of our sector partnerships. And what I have observed in these sector partnership meetings, we have in 2025, these are going to be quarterly. So you can expect to have roughly 20 meetings across these 5 different industries. We have a lot of folks who are looking for careers. They find these meetings, they join. We held a meeting at Medtronic this year, and we had someone who was in engineering and manufacturing, and this gentleman popped in, made a few contacts. He was able to schedule a coffee with me. I connected him to maybe 3 or 4 different networking players in the area, and he was able to land a position relatively similar to the field he was looking at. So this happens a lot. So I would say anyone who's on this call looking for networking opportunities, connecting directly to companies, is just to pop into one of our sector partnership meetings. If you land on that link, you'll find a calendar of events. We're preparing our 2025 calendar. They may not be completely fleshed out for 2025 just yet, but keep an eye on this link and be ready to jump. Now, sector partnerships are just for like when you show up and you're like shocked at what one is. We do have networking at the start. It's a good way for you to connect with people, but the majority of those meetings are really for the industry partners to basically share their challenges and for us to basically be able to build programming. So a lot of times it is talent. A lot of times it's supply chain. Sometimes it's policy. So we're focusing on what their challenges are, but it's always good for the community partners like Workforce Boulder County, Front Range Community College, CU, the school districts who are there in the background listening, and those who are networking. It's good for them to hear the challenges these businesses are having, so you can be more flexible in your own development. So again, those are really good ways to connect with businesses and other networkers who are connecting people to industry. Another one that we developed is adult apprenticeships. A lot of our work has been in the past has been focused on K-12 and connecting youth to programs like CareerWise, which is I'm an 18-year-old senior at a high school, and I'm working in some sort of career technical education, construction, manufacturing, electronics, whatever it may be, and then I partner with an industry partner and with the promise of an entry-level position. Those are great. We still support those, but there's a huge push for adult apprenticeships. You may have heard it. Colorado is putting a lot of money into the pipeline for adult apprenticeships, and that's for youth and for incumbent workers also. So folks who are looking to re-enter the workforce. So I will share another link. Currently, we have 14 different pathways, adult apprenticeship pathways, varying in different career paths. Optics manufacturing with Accelitas Technologies, industrial maintenance with Medtronic, Boulder Community Health. We have a number of medical assisting programs with Boulder Community Health, Boulder Medical Center, a number of individual family practice organizations. We support the Colorado Restaurant Association with line cook and restaurant management apprenticeships. But these are all really valuable ways that we're growing access to opportunities. John went over a lot of information. I'm going to share. I love sharing links. So if you don't like links, I apologize. Here's another one. This is basically the Boulder Economic Council is part of the chamber. We have our own website that's a little separate from the chamber. But if you come to our site and you're looking for information, the link that I just shared is our data page. And you can always ask for custom reporting to get, hey, I'm looking for something specific on an industry. If you go all the way down the page, you're going to find our event presentations. And this is from back in 2000. This is January of this year, where we invited the lead school of business from CU to come and give us a forecast on what the local economic outlook looks like for Boulder. There's a presentation there. You can get that. But right below that is a forecast from Elizabeth Gardner, the state demographer. The population for Colorado is decreasing rapidly and the forecast shows that it will for the next 20 years. A lot of states are kind of experiencing that same low growth. So jobs are going to, we're going to have less people to do more jobs. So there's building out these, where are we going to find the talent? We're going to find it from youth coming out of high school. We're going to find it from new Americans or immigrant populations or underrepresented populations. And we're going to find it from our current incumbent workforce or folks looking to re-enter the workforce. So despite what happened earlier this week, we don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but I can tell you that the state of Colorado is putting a lot of money towards adult apprenticeships and growing workforce training, skills gap analysis to figure out what kind of programs we need to be developing. We've had a number of private conversations with folks in life sciences. We've brought in like 10 different industry partners and asked them what they're currently looking for. They have great talent on the floor, but that same talent on the floor who's doing that work, they want to see them grow, and they're not seeing enough leadership development in those individuals. There needs to be more leadership training for that level of the workforce. So we're hoping that 2025 to really get more involved with what do those trainings look like? How can we be more supportive of those? We do have a number of sector partnership opportunities where we go out and get grants to support industry, which in turn supports workforce. For our food, beverage, hospitality group, we did get roughly $49,000 to support with Save Serve alcohol trainings, Serve Safe food handling and management training, and again more development of adult apprenticeships. So I would say those would be the really low-hanging fruit for this group. Sector partnerships and looking at adult apprenticeships, If you're ever looking to, I'll leave my contact information here in the chat. If you're like, Matt, can you plug me into a specific group? I mean, we're sitting here on a meetup. I have found meetups very beneficial to network. I often look up all kinds of meetup groups, not just within Boulder, Longmont, but also down in Denver. And you can meet the right people very quickly if you're hanging out in the right space. I'll stop there if anybody has any specific questions.
Well, hey, John and Matt, that was fantastic. You fit a lot of information into a short amount of time. I'm sorry if we pressed you into going talking fast, but that was great. Yeah, any questions from anybody?
Somebody had a question about our sector partnerships. They are mostly in person.
Okay. Any quick thoughts on the election?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask, just given the change of party affiliation between administration, there's a lot of federal money that comes into the state and the Front Range. I mean, in John's presentation, he mentioned NIST, right? That's federal money. How you expect that, NREL is federal money. How you expect the change in administration to maybe change the work environment, given how much federal money comes into Boulder specifically, but also just the Front Range in general, because aerospace, there's just a lot of federal money that comes into the state.
Yeah, maybe I'll hit that first, and then just Matt can jump in. But I'll say this couple things. So first of all, there's a lot of commentary and postulation during the campaigns that we just don't know what is real. And also some of it depends on where things play out in the House and the Senate to know whether or not certain policies will be implemented. So we're at this point not reacting to any sense of where the direction would be from this administration in terms of even just the investments in federal programs. Having said that, those on the chat here, the meetup, and those who read the newspaper would know that listen, the president-elect has said that he will zero out climate change funding. And I always joke, you can't swing a stick in Boulder without hitting a climate change scientist. That's about 2,000 jobs that could be lost if that was completely zeroed out. Don't know. Last time that threat was issued, they essentially reprogrammed the money, called it something different, and they just didn't mention climate. It was about sort of national weather conditions and future direction. So I'll just say this, that we are certainly concerned about when they talk about cutting $2 trillion from the budget, when they talk about directly cutting back on specific research programs, that does factor into our economic condition. But at this point, it's not clear that that's necessarily all going to play out as the rhetoric in the campaign suggested. So I think that's probably the biggest indication of where we are right now. I don't know, Matt, do you have anything else to add on that one?
I would just say it's really hard to know what's going to happen and what's, like what John said, what's actually going to be implemented, what's not. I do know Colorado is very dedicated to the programs that I mentioned, and we're going to no matter what happens, we're going to need workforce. We're going to need more people to come in and do jobs here in Boulder County and surrounding area. So that's not going to change.
Matt, Bonnie's asking if there's financial assistance for the adult apprenticeship trainings.
So we're working on that. We actually connect with a couple of different organizations. With Front Range, they are actively always looking for specific. So the way that an adult apprenticeship works is we have the employer, we have a related instruction provider, and we have the sponsor. So we are the sponsor at Boulder Chamber. The related instruction provider is like a Front Range. We also partner with a few other organizations, and then the employer. That makes sense. Front Range is our related instruction provider, and they have a couple of different grants depending on what sector we're in. I think Metallica had some grants. Oddly enough, the band Metallica has a grant that supports manufacturing. Who knew? And then there's also some funds for healthcare in the medical assisting area. We are developing a relationship with Virginia Manufacturing Association, and that's going to help us garner some funds to help with potentially manufacturing, but that's kind of up in the air at this moment. But we're always looking for how do we partner with an organization to find some funds and to connect it to one of these programs. We also partner with a group called BPI. That's a new partnership. We're having more dialogue with them, I think, this week. But yes, we're constantly looking for scholarships or a way to basically say $1,000 to $2,000 to support a person who's entering into that adult apprenticeship.
John and Matt, I think we should let you get back to your great work. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Good, great meeting you all, and please be in touch if we can be of assistance, as Matt said. So take care. Nice to see you, Don.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate your time.
Pleasure, Trent. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to a couple of intros. I'll stop the recording.